On the dark and quiet night of August 8, 1963, a Royal Mail train was moving steadily through the British countryside. Its journey started in Glasgow, with London as its final destination. To the outside world, this train looked completely ordinary, just another postal train cutting through the night. But inside one of its carriages were canvas bags filled with cash money worth nearly £67 million today. At the controls was 58-year-old train driver Jack Mills, guiding the engine through the darkness. The tracks were empty. The night was calm. Then suddenly, a red signal light appeared up ahead at a remote railway crossing. Jack Mills immediately knew something was wrong. At that time, in that specific location, there was no reason for the signal to be red. Still, following protocol, he applied the brakes. The heavy train slowed down and came to a complete stop on an isolated stretch of track, far from any station. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. But that silence hid a master plan, one that had been carefully prepared for months. A plan that would soon be remembered as one of the greatest robberies in modern history. This was the Great Train Robbery, a crime so bold that the criminals didn't just steal money, they stole the train itself. Welcome to World Secrets Archive. What sounds like a Hollywood movie plot actually happened in real life. A group of criminals executed a flawless, highly coordinated operation and robbed a British government train, all without firing a single bullet. But this robbery didn't begin that night. It began months earlier. In London, a group of well-known criminals quietly came together to plan something truly unprecedented. At the center of this group was a man named Bruce Reynolds. Reynolds was no amateur thief. He was experienced, intelligent, and extremely cautious. But even he knew that robbing a moving train was no ordinary crime. What made this entire operation possible was inside information. Bruce Reynolds had received secret details about the Royal Mail's operations from a senior security officer working within the system. The identity of this insider has never been revealed, not then and not even today. The information was precise and incredibly dangerous. Reynolds learned that the Glasgow to London Royal Mail train carried a special carriage called the HVP car, short for high-value packages. This carriage was used to transport huge amounts of cash, usually from money orders sent between cities. On certain days, the amount of money inside this carriage was massive. And one specific day stood out. The Royal Mail train had 12 carriages. On board were 72 postal workers, sorting mail during the journey. This train was designed to never fully stop at stations. Instead, as it slowed down, local post office staff would hang mail bags on elevated hooks. Postal workers inside the train would grab incoming bags and drop outgoing ones, all while the train was still moving. It was an incredibly efficient system that had been working perfectly for years, but the HVP carriage was different. It was usually protected by security alarm systems. However, in 1960, the Post Office Investigation Branch recommended upgrading these alarms. By 1961, only 3 HVP carriages had working alarm systems. The older ones were placed in reserve. And on the night of the robbery, all the alarm-equipped HVP carriages were out of service. Instead, a reserve carriage M3024M was used. This carriage had no security alarm at all. To the criminals, this wasn't a coincidence. It was the final confirmation that their plan could work. Normally, an HVP carriage carried around £300,000. But this time something unusual happened. The robbery was planned just after a bank holiday weekend. Because banks had been closed, a much larger amount of cash was being transported. That night, the HVP carriage contained nearly £3 million. That meant 12 times more money, no alarm system, inside information, and perfect timing. The gang knew this was their moment. On August 7, 1963, at 6:50 p.m., the Royal Mail train departed Glasgow Central Station. Its scheduled arrival at London Euston was 4:00 a.m. the next morning. Late at night, when the train reached Nuneaton Valley, the HVP carriage was attached directly behind the engine, exactly as the insider had described. Now, the criminals were ready. By 3 a.m., members of the gang were hiding near Sears Crossing, concealed in bushes alongside the track. One gang member approached the signal system. He blocked the green light with a glove and then used a battery to power the red light. The trap was set. As the train approached the crossing, Jack Mills saw the red signal. He was confused. Royal Mail trains were never stopped at this crossing. Still, he followed protocol and applied the brakes. The train stopped, silence returned. The assistant driver stepped off the train to use the trackside telephone. But when he picked it up, he discovered the line had been cut. Before he could even react, the gang emerged from the darkness and restrained him. At the same time, several criminals climbed into the engine from both sides. Jack Mills resisted. One of the attackers struck him on the head with an iron bar, and he collapsed unconscious in the driver's seat. While chaos unfolded in the engine, other gang members detached the engine and the first two carriages from the rest of the train. Their goal wasn't to rob the train where it stood. They planned to move it. Just 1 kilometer away was Bridego Bridge, where a truck was waiting below. The gang had brought a retired train driver to operate the engine, but when he saw the modern controls, he panicked. He had never driven that type of engine before. With no other option, the criminals revived Jack Mills and forced him to drive the train forward. Injured and disoriented, he moved the engine and carriages to Bridego Bridge. There, the train was stopped again. The gang broke into the HVP carriage. Inside were 5 postal staff members. They were beaten, tied up, and forced to lie face down. Inside the carriage were 128 bags of cash. Each bag was filled with £1 notes, £5 notes, and 10-shilling notes. The total weight was nearly 2.5 tons. The gang had 15 minutes. They formed a human chain and passed the bags down into the waiting truck. In total, 120 bags were loaded. 8 were left behind due to lack of time. The robbery was complete. The criminals escaped using an Austin Lodestar truck and 2 Land Rovers, both with the same fake license plate, BMG 757. By 4:30 a.m., they reached their hideout Leather Slade Farm, nearly 43 kilometers away. Throughout the journey, they listened to police communications on a VHF radio. At the hideout, they celebrated. They laughed, they relaxed, and they even played Monopoly using real banknotes from the heist. But this moment of joy would soon destroy them. Police quickly realized the robbers had told the staff not to move for 30 minutes. That gave investigators a clear radius to search. Within days, police raided the hideout. Although the gang had wiped most of their fingerprints, they missed one crucial thing: the Monopoly board. Fingerprints were still there. These prints matched criminal records at Scotland Yard. One by one, the arrests followed. Out of 16 criminals, 14 were captured. Only 2 escaped justice: the replacement train driver and the Royal Mail insider. Their identities remain unknown to this day. The court declared it the crime of the century. Most of the gang members were sentenced to 30 years in prison. Bridego Bridge became famously known as Train Robbers Bridge. Jack Mills never fully recovered from his injuries. 7 years later, he passed away. This has been World Secrets Archive. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next story.